Good afternoon, and welcome to the CartoPac iOS for electric utilities with EDM. I want to thank you for taking the time to join us today. My name is Teresa Chavez. I'm a sales executive here with CartoPac. Before we get started, I want to do an audio check and a visual check, making sure that you can see the CartoPac EDM slide and that you can also hear me. If you're able to click and raise your hand so that I can see a few people. All right, wonderful. Looks like we've got audio and video. Okay, so just a few housekeeping before we move on. Please feel free to ask questions during the webinar. At the end, we will have a question and answer session. You can click on the questions to expand and then enter in your question. If you would like to reduce the webinar pane, you can click on the arrow that will reduce it and then expand out again as needed. Our presenters today will be Glenn Glass, the co-founder and vice president of marketing and product management with CartoPac International, and Paul Peterson, the GIS manager with EDM International.
Thanks, Teresa. You know, our clients have been asking for iOS for some time and really just wanted to clarify what were some of the motivations we had in pursuing an iOS application for CartoPac. It really has become the most frequent requested feature from our customers, and really what is driving that is that companies are desiring to have one mobile solution that supports a wide range of mobile workflows but also supports a wide range of devices. A good way of looking at that is people are wanting to have applications that work on the devices that they already have on them. It also needs to complement other devices and not replace. So oftentimes we see there may be a high accuracy workflow, there may be a tablet workflow, there may be other workflows they're already using, and they want to complement that and make that data available to a much larger audience within their organization. So we're asked as far as what makes CartoPac for iOS unique, and we really look at the this is a kind of a diagram of a very general solution, and generally that we've got Esri ArcGIS for server. It's hooked up to a geodatabase. There's the ability to write a solution, deploy that solution into the field, and bring that information back. In CartoPac for iOS, some of the key advantages here and what we see as being unique is that we are able to support within the configuration environment the ability to bring data from both the geodatabase and a non-spatial asset database like Maximo, SAP, or some other work order management system. The ability to author and deploy solutions is another key advantage. This allows you to make the database connections, use some of the intelligence that CartoPac has in building its forms. Some of the unique features there would be like spatial to spatial relationships within the forms, spatial to non-spatial, some of the ways we do calculations, and the ability to have that connect to the database, not having to do any changes in the data formatting, have a tool to verify that that solution is going to work as configured, and then deploy that out into the field. We get asked a lot about from companies saying, we don't want more data coming in from the field. We have plenty of that, but we want more quality data that we know the pedigree and we know what's happened with that data so that we can make critical decisions about managing our assets and infrastructure. And CartoPac Workflow Manager is a tool that we have that no matter which device that you have, it allows us to bring that data back in through a structured process. We can configure how the data comes back in. We can configure email notifications. We can configure types of editing that happens. We can configure how it works with geoprocessing and scripting. And we have a complete audit trail for that data. And we also do support a wide range of devices. So back to that key point that I brought up earlier is that from within one platform, we can support a Windows 7, Windows 8, Windows 10 tablet. We can support an iPad, an iPhone, and we can also support a Windows Mobile shown here as a Trimble. So CartoPac is unique in its way that we deal with our iOS deployment is that we extended our entire platform to support iOS. We didn't just build a small iOS application and try to bolt that onto CartoPac. So I want to give you just a few kind of overviews of what we've done with the solution specifically for iOS. In this example here, you see a map view, and you can inquire on the assets, and down the left side you see the image on the left has a question mark. Now that allows me to inquire on the data that's already been collected. But if I click on that and change it, it brings up the editing toolbar, which is really great for linear features and area features, where I can go through and make edits to go through the different vertices, move points with GPS, delete features. So this is pretty robust functionality for being able to edit those linear and area features. Some of the options that we have within CartoPac for iOS is we can look at, this is how we get access to the projects. So we can have multiple projects on a server. Allows us to connect to different type of background maps. In this, we have the ability to choose a standard, which would be close to a street map, a hybrid, which is going to be streets and satellite, and then just a pure satellite. This imagery, as you move around and download it, that imagery is cached on your device so that you have access to it when you're in a disconnected mode. We also select the area of interest, which allows us to specify how large of an area that you bring down to the device. We can configure the working with different barcode readers for being able to scan different barcodes on assets. We'll cover that a little bit later. And the graphic on the right shows is that how you connect to the server through a username and password, but we're also working on browser-based authentication for the larger enterprise deployments. So with that, I'm going to turn this over to Paul, and he's going to walk through the type of solutions that they have configured and give you a demo of the product and the configuration environment.
Thanks, Glenn. So over the past 3 years, EDM has been configuring various solutions for electric utilities and associated contractors in the space related to transmission, distribution, substation, underground, as well as environmental and veg management. And the solutions primarily will address inventory of these assets and then inspection and maintenance of these given assets. And in particular today, I will be demonstrating some of our template workflows for electric overhead distribution assets. So now we are going to switch over to an iPad. Okay. Very good. Okay, so we have switched over to the iPad. Of course, this will work on iPhone as well, but this is a larger, probably 10-inch iPad device. And we've already downloaded the electric distribution template. And so what you're seeing on this map here, which I can zoom in and zoom out on, are our overhead primary lines, 1-phase, 2-phase, and 3-phase. And as I zoom in further, you can see that we have some scale thresholding, so we start seeing street names, and we start seeing individual poles. Okay, and as Glenn mentioned, we can easily go into the options and change from this hybrid photo / street view to a straight street map. I'll go back to my map, and so now we've just demonstrating how it's pretty easy and effective to change our base maps. I'm going to go back to that hybrid map though. Okay, and you can see as I zoom in and as I pan around, performance on the base map is pretty good, and the rendering of our vector assets are pretty good as well. Up in the upper left corner here, we have our GPS icon, so I can activate the GPS on this iPad device, and that'll just snap my screen straight over to where I'm located. So this is CartoPac's building right here. And with the GPS activated, if I add a new feature, such as a new distribution pole, it would just automatically snap that feature that I added to my GPS location. Or if I want to heads-up digitize something, I could just turn that GPS off again and add a new feature, and then I could just tap on the screen to manually add where I want to go. So you have either option of using your GPS for adding features or heads-up digitizing. For now, I'm gonna use my GPS though. And so to add, let's say I want to inventory a wood pole. So in this workflow, I'm going to hit the plus button in the upper right, and that brings up a menu where I can determine which feature layer I want to add data into. You can see I have a few different layers available. I'm going to pick distribution pole and then click done, then click create. And again, the GPS just plots that point right there on the map, and from there that automatically brings up my pole form. And so I can enter my pole number using my iPhone or iPad keyboard here. I can pick a material from a pick list, so I have a drop down here. So I'm going to say it's a wood pole. I can pick the manufacturer, we'll say Koppers. This is a Penta pole, so I can pick Penta for my pick list here. All these pick lists are coming from Esri attribute domains, but they could come from other types of lookup tables or even a static dropdown. I'll show that a little bit later in a studio demo. And lastly, we'll say that the subtype here is a primary pole. Okay, so that's tab number one. You can see that we have a tabbed form, which gives us quite a bit of room to put different drop-downs, text boxes, and check boxes on. So this is tab number one. I'm going to go to tab number two, which is a continuation of the form. So let's say this is Doug Furr, owned by the company, not reinforced. Another note here is that some of these drop-downs are optional and some are mandatory. So in CartoPac, we do have the power to validate fields, which means that the user cannot leave the form until certain fields are filled. So for example, in this height field up here, you can see I have a little asterisk by it. That means that's a required field. If I try and leave that form and submit it, I'll get a validation error that says, hey, you're not done yet. You need to go back and populate that particular field. So those are some safeguards to improve our quality that is built right into all products of CartoPac, including iOS. So I'm going to finish filling out these required fields. We'll do height, class, and the brand year. Yeah, this will be a newer pole, why not? And I can say the height and class are estimated. I have little check boxes for those. There we go. And I can write general pole comments as well. I'm going to skip that for now. So at this point, I've GPSed a pole. I've added some basic information about that particular wood pole. Now I'm going to go to a related form and add inventory items that are attached to that pole. So that might be wires, joint use, cross arms, insulators, transformers, other equipment, things like that. So we can relate additional equipment, associate those things with those poles, and we're using a relational database to do this. So this is called a relay control, and I can add as many inventory items as I want. So I can hit the add button here. That brings up a new form. This form is for adding those related inventory items that are associated with that pole. And it's going to funnel me through a workflow, so the only option here is for me to pick my category. So let's say I want to do equipment. Okay. Now I get a new drop-down in my workflow for item. And the elements that are in this drop-down are related to the category type. So since I already picked equipment, my item types are only types of equipment. So I'll pick a transformer. Then I can determine which type. So in this case, the KVA, the number of units. And I can do things like install date or serial number, bank number as optional features. I'm not going to do that for the sake of time. I can also enter in heights, and I can take photos as well. I'll demonstrate the photo control at this point. So let's say if I want to have one photo for every inventory item, I can hit the Add button on my photo control. Takes me to my photo form. And if I have an integrated camera, which of course I do on my iOS device, I can just hit this camera icon. And that uses the camera on this iPad. So I'll take that picture and I'll use this photo. And then I have some optional pieces of info I could add here. I have a drop down for photo direction. And so let's say I'm facing east when I took that photo. Okay, so I now have an inventory item and I have a photo with that inventory item. Let's demonstrate one more inventory item. And so I already added a transformer. Let's say I want to add a joint use attachment. So I could pick wire as a category. And then for my item drop-down, notice that this item list has changed from the previous time I showed this. Instead of being different types of equipment, these are different types of wire. So I could pick comm wire. And then the type, let's say it's cable TV. And again, quantity and install date, or I could put in as well. And later on in the workflow, we could enter the owner, things like that you'd want to have for this piece of information. Okay, so that's an example of how we can add inventory items and relate those to a pole GPS point. If I go to my next tab, I see that I have a few ways to add different types of inspections. I can add a ground line inspection. I can add various pole top maintenance issues. So I'll demonstrate this, a ground line inspection. So now at this point, I've added a new GPS point for the ground line inspection. On my first tab here, tab number 1, it just shows my basic pole information that's carried over from the pole that I launched the inspection from. So that relationship is still intact. I can add in optionally a street address if that's important. If I go to my second tab though, I can start filling in some of the information for the setting. So note that CartoPac was intelligent enough based on this configuration to automatically bring over the pole height, class, species, original preservative, and year. That came from the parent form, so we don't have to re-enter that. That said, if something were different, if the inspector out in the field and noticed an error, perhaps in the GIS, they can make that correction here. But we can pick the setting. So if we say that the pole is set in soil, there's some logic then that will be displayed in the following drop-down. So if this is a pole set in soil, our inspection types would include a full excavation, partial excavation, sound and bore, as well as visual. However, if I had picked in that first drop-down that the pole was set in asphalt, note that if I go to inspection type, that the partial dig and the full dig are no longer available. This is an example of a queried drop-down or a conditional-based drop-down, and that's another example of intelligence that's built right into CartoPac, where you can configure it, and this template is configured in such a way to reduce the chances of getting mutually exclusive or potentially bad data from the field. Reduces the chance of fat fingering things and just gives us better quality data. I'm going to say this is a full excavate though. Last thing I'll fill in on this form is a ground line circumference. So we'll just, we'll say this is a 35-inch pole. And if I go to my third tab, this is where I put in my recommended action. So it's either going to be a restoration candidate or a replacement candidate or a pass. And this is another place where we can showcase some of the rules that are built into CartoPac, because we can default values here based on the percent remaining strength. So if I go back to my first tab, let's say if I have 60% remaining strength in my pole based on what we measured in DCalc or some other pole modeling software, based on that number, we can actually default the recommended action. So in this case, if it's a 60% remaining strength pole, that's going to be a replacement candidate. Okay. I actually want to put this as a pass pole though. Whoops. There we go. So let's say it's 90%. So I'm going to mark this pole as a pass. And so since this is a pass pole, we are going to treat it. So now we're going to enter our treatment type. So we can do ultra-fume for the fumigant. We're going to do a QRAP for the external treatment, some QNAP for internal, and then we'll also mark down the quantities of our different treatments so that we can log that and know how many units we used of each item. Okay. And then of course we can write comments and take photos if those are necessary. But I'll hit OK to log that ground line inspection. Okay, so another inspection type would be just a pole top condition assessment, and so I will add one of those. And this is another example of intelligent drop-downs because I can pick my component and my condition drop-down will be based on whatever component I pick. So if I pick cross arm as my component, then my conditions are based on the cross arm component type. Whereas if I pick conductor as my component, the defect or the condition would be based on it being a conductor. So I'll go with conductor here. I'll do floating wire. I'm going to give this an MPR. This is a big deal. I'm going to say this is an emergency. We need to fix this immediately. And as optional fields, I could pick a remedy. If I fix it right there, I can note that the maintenance has been performed. But for now, I'm just going to note that this needs to be repaired. And then once we repair it, we can close the loop. We can close out the issue by noting that the maintenance was performed. Other optional fields, I can mark quantity, I can mark cause. If you're trying to track vandalism or track one certain type of defect, we can mark that here. And of course, comments and photos, which I've already demonstrated. So I'm going to hit OK and log that pole top condition. So I'm going to hit OK and I'm going to exit this pole form. Note that I added a new pole and all these symbols are now on the map. So I have a symbol for a new pole and I have a GPS symbol for a ground line inspection as well as a pole top maintenance issue. So those are examples of adding inspections from the primary asset, so adding an inspection from the pole. We always have that relationship or that linkage between the pole and the inspection at that point. We can also add various types of patrol issues, things that are noted from the plus button. So perhaps if I can turn on my GPS while I do this, so I can do some heads-up digitizing. But let's say if I'm patrolling and I notice a vegetation issue, I can insert a new record. Instead of being in distribution pole, I would insert it in vegetation issue point. Hit create, and then I can actually tap on the map to note where I saw that issue. And so in this case, we're going to say we have an encroachment on the conductors. I can note the species optionally, or maybe just the general tree type, a tree count. Let's say there's between 1 and 10. Conductor clearance. So it's getting pretty close, 13 feet. The outside temperature, may impact the sag and things like that. And finally, that maintenance priority reading. How serious is this? We're going to get to this. We're going to service this as soon as we can. And of course, I can take a picture. So I can hit OK, and I now have that little leaf icon on the map signifies where that issue is noted. That could be handed off to a contractor to navigate back to that spot and perform the trimming or the clearing. Similarly, we can add issues for right-of-way, maybe erosion or road obstruction. I'll demo just one more though. I'll add a GPS point for a landowner issue. That's part of this template. And I'll just put on this building here. And so in this scenario, perhaps there's a landowner who just who requires you to be escorted before you access their property. And we can put in a name and contact info. And an address as optional. We can add a second restriction and a second name in there as well, and of course a photo. So At this point, I've added a poll, I've added several inspection types, and landowner issue and a veg issue. So this is a pretty comprehensive template. There's a lot of different tasks and inspection types, inventory types that you can do with this particular template. The last thing I'll show before I upload is the concept of data summary. That's that button in the bottom middle here. And the data summary button gives us a list view of all the data we've collected. So I can see a list view of all of my polls, or in this case it's landowner issues. And I can change which piece of data I'm summarizing. So perhaps if I want to summarize my distribution polls, I can show all my distribution polls there. And then straight from data summary, I can bring up the form. So if I just click on it and hit data, then the form will come up from there and I can make adjustments. So it's just a different way of viewing the data. Again, we have the map view, but also we have this list view. And data summary is pretty neat because you can search for things, you can query, and it just it gives a different access point to the data. So at this point, I'm done collecting data in this demo, and I want to synchronize with my server. And what that is, as soon as you would need to have either Wi-Fi or 3G or 4G data connection. And I'm just going to hit this lightning bolt icon on the right-hand corner, and that's going to upload the data to, I'll go ahead and do that. That's going to upload my data that I collected, only the data updates, so only the deltas. That's going to make our data packet a little bit smaller, or a lot smaller in some cases. It's going to upload all those to our CartoPac server, funnel the data back into our GIS server or whatever your data platform is, and back into the enterprise. And then it's going to re-download a new data packet so that the field user has the same data packet again, and the field user can resume working. If other field users have done uploads in the meantime, when we do the sync, those previous uploads would come back down to this tablet, so this field user, or me in this case, could see every other field user's work as well. So it's a true synchronization. And you can see that our merge was successful, and I merged 8 different data records back to our GIS database. So yeah, we've now sent data back to the server. I'm going to make a note on CartoPac Workflow Manager, or CWM, can be configured for automatic emails. And so we have configured a workflow where if we send any maintenance issue with a maintenance priority rating of E, that's that emergency, that it would generate an automatic email. And you can see that we have received some emails of a data upload, as well as an email notifying that emergency maintenance record has been uploaded. So that's just an example of automated emails. So criteria-based automated emails. So if there's some sort of emergency condition or some everybody needs to know type condition, emails can go out to the to various stakeholders for that project type. Okay. And then the last thing I want to walk through for the demo is just a very short overview of CartoPac Studio. And so CartoPac Studio is the configuration software. This would run on a desktop computer, and a GIS or a database analyst or a data manager would use this to configure the CartoPac solution. So it's used to build all the custom forms, as well as integrate with various databases, so we can integrate directly with Direct Connect to SQL Server, Direct Connect to Oracle, ArcSDE, File Geodatabase, Esri ArcGIS Server Feature Service, as well as non-spatial data sources. And and all the workflows, I showed various types of intelligence built into the form, like those cascading drop-downs, show hide functionality, hiding things until a criteria is met, automatically defaulting values, things like that. That is all set up in CartoPac Studio. Studio is more of a drag and drop interface. It's good to have a good knowledge of SQL, but there's no programming required. So we'll break away, and I'll spend about 5 minutes just showing, maybe 3 minutes, just showing CartoPac Studio. And so this is what I love to do. I live in Studio for most of my days, And so this is the actual studio solution for the exact demo I was showing you just a couple minutes ago. And in CartoPac Studio, again, we're going to connect to various databases. So I have 3 different database connections here. In this case, they're all coming from ArcGIS Server feature services, but I could throw in a SQL Server data connection or an Oracle data connection in here as well. And so I'm going to configure that, set permissions in here. I'm going to set field types and defaults and things like that through this console. Very, very robust. The user interface, or the UI, this is where I would set things like just the aliases, how layer names would show up in the user interface. I can set my symbology and my symbology colors here, symbology sizes, labels and what the label attribute field is, things like that. So very configurable there, as well as scale thresholding. When does the layer turn on or turn off? That helps our performance. So it's very, very property driven. So again, anyone who's used Microsoft Access or other similar tools, this may look kind of similar. And then lastly, of course, the big part is setting up forms. And so all those forms that you were seeing in the demo, those are set up here. And like I said, forms can be drag and drop. I can simply move things around, or I can add new features. I can add a new drop down. I can bind those drop downs or those text boxes to various attributes, things like that. So let's say if I wanted, just to show you that it's pretty easy to do on the fly. Let's say I wanted to add a new drop down list. So I added a new drop down, and let's say I want to bind that drop down to something I'm not collecting data on, but it is my GIS, phasing. I want to collect the phase. And then from there, I want to populate that drop down list. And I can link to a query lookup table, or I can just create my own drop down list here. So let's say we have A phase, B phase, C, maybe AB, AC, BC, and ABC. Okay, so then if I were to go and republish this solution now, go to Tools and Publish, the next time somebody downloads, they would have this new drop-down list for phase, and within that drop-down list, they could pick whether it's A, B, or C, or a two-phase or three-phase pool. So there you go. So this is a very simple example of creating or editing in CartoPac Studio. Last thing I want to note here in Studio, though, is that we can support different types of screens in the same Studio solution. So I've been showing this QVGA screen, which is suitable for iPhone and iPad as well as Trimble. But in the same solution, we can also show and support a Windows tablet format. So this form here that you're seeing here is a landscape orientation for tablet. And so this would look very good and perform very well on a Windows 8 or Windows 10 tablet device, like a Dell Rugged or a Panasonic ToughPad. And so the really neat thing about this is in this one solution, we can publish this one solution to the server. Different field users can download the solution, and if they're using an iPhone or a Trimble, it's going to automatically load in this QVGA form, and it'll be optimized for that smaller device. But if they downloaded it on a Windows tablet or a laptop of some sort, CartoPac would sense that screen size, that resolution type, and automatically load in these larger forms that have kind of bigger drop downs and more screen real estate and so forth. So this is really powerful. That means you can have a mixed fleet. You can have some people collecting on Trimble, some on iPhone, some on Windows, and they can be using the exact same solution and loading data, uploading data back into that same enterprise database, and then going through those same validation rules. And all the functionality, pretty much all the functionality we can do on the Windows side, we can do on the iPhone side. So it's very much cross-platform.
So thank you, Paul. That was a lot of information, and hopefully what you're able to see is that there's features and functionality available for iOS that really no other platform can provide. And we saw that, you got to see the configurability. You got to see the intelligence that's been built into the form, really the level of control that you have over a solution and being able to connect to different database sources, control the symbology, control how it looks on the map, and being able to have a structured process, including those email notifications, being able to have an audit trail for all of that data coming back into the organization. Excuse me. And so we're really excited about what we're able to provide here in not only iOS, but all these other devices, and to be able to get these configured for different solutions. Hopefully also you saw that there are some templates that are available that you can leverage off of, have best practices already in place, and you can really be able to build and deploy a solution very quickly. We have multiple deployment options. So there's a lot of customers that we come and we do an on-premise deployment. We install CartoPac, we integrate it with the different components, work within the different IT requirements within that organization. But we also have a product called CartoPac Core, which is our hosted or SaaS offering, and that is an option for many companies to be able to get started. It has all the software tools that you need on it to be able to build these type of solutions, configure them to meet your requirements, and then different utilities to get data up to the hosted environment and bring that also back down for use within your organization. CartoPac Core is based on a Microsoft Azure instance. Within that, we include the Esri ArcGIS for Server, which is already configured and ready for use. We have CartoPac Server and CartoPac Workflow Manager installed. CartoPac Studio is installed, and that was the tool that Paul gave you an introduction to. We have data management utilities that allow you to upload your data for your key assets and infrastructure, and you can use Studio then to map those to these templates or be able to extend it to meet your specific needs. There's also utilities to be able to grab that data from the hosted environment, bring that on-premise for use within other applications. We also support the Windows 7, Windows 8, Windows 10, iOS, both iPad and iPhone, and then the Windows Mobile, which is shown here by the Trimble icon. All of those devices are supported within the core platform. So we're really excited about what this gives people for both having a complete solution available in the cloud, but also in an evaluation environment where they can very quickly and easily evaluate how CartoPac works for their assets and be able to migrate that data into an on-premise deployment in the future. So all of what we've shown you here is there are template solutions available for you to be able to evaluate within a CartoPac Core environment. So on our website under software, there's free trial option. You go to the iTunes store and you download the latest version of CartoPac Mobile for iOS. You fill out a form there for your free trial. Once you submit that form, we send you credentials and a login to be able to connect to one of the servers, get one of the solutions of your choice, go out in the field, collect that data, interface with the technology, get familiar with the features and functionality. That data gets uploaded, and you'll be able to see different configurations within Workflow Manager and some videos on how CartoPac Studio works. That provides a great framework for you to get an evaluation, and then gives us a chance to be able to engage with you if you would like to be able to discuss how CartoPac can be extended for your specific workflows. So just to summarize this, we've got different mobile devices. We see here that on the far left, there's a Trimble R1. That can be connected to the iPhone or the iPad. You can be getting sub-meter and sub-foot GPS accuracy. Shows the different devices, the different types of sensors, and the different types of GPS accuracy that are available within these different platforms.
So at this time, we'd like to go ahead and take some questions from our audience. And okay, first question is, what utilities are participating?
Yeah, so these kinds of solutions could be used by pretty much any kind of utility, whether it be transmission, distribution, overhead, underground, gas and electric, water. So pretty much any kind of linear infrastructure, this is a very strong tool for.
All right. Are there any additional questions? We'll give it a few seconds and let anyone who has an additional question ask. I'd like to mention that the webinar is being recorded and will be available both through email you'll be receiving and also on our website. Okay, well at this point we'd like to go ahead and do a demonstration of the barcode. Get set up.
So what I wanted to show here was just some things within development that we have. Here's integrated with the iPhone or the iPad, there's the ability to be able to scan a barcode. And so I'm just going to get this close to this gas distribution, and it goes ahead and it captures the barcode off of that piece of plastic pipe. Here's it going off of a 2D code, so it grabs that, populates the attributes. So we see that this will be another use within utilities for being able to collect barcodes, get those decoded on the device, and add some additional functionality to CartoPac for iOS.
All right. Going to see if there have been any additional questions that have come up. Okay, so the question is, you mentioned CartoPac can be integrated into SAP workflows. How compatible is it?
So CartoPac is a fairly extensible platform, and we've worked with different companies to interface with SAP, Maximo, and other in-house work order management systems. So there's really, we extend the ability to get data from the work order management system, be able to interface with that with CartoPac, be able to send that data to a device and blend it in with the GIS data. Then when that data comes back from the field, it goes through a QA/QC process and then gets positioned to be loaded back into SAP or Maximo with the APIs, and oftentimes we leverage Workflow Manager as a way to be able to script that.
Feel free to contact both myself and Paul if you have any additional questions. And we want to thank you for participating in our webinar today.